Shalom, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of The Upper Room After Hours. Thanks once again for joining me. It's a privilege and an honour that you've shared your time to be with me today. Another 2 weeks has passed. Loads going on. 2 weeks is a very long time in terms of what's taking place in the media in the world. So I've had to whittle it down to several stories once again as we take another look into all things weird, wonderful, and everything else in between. So again, a few bits to get through today. So we'll just crack straight in there. Right. So the next article that came up again, I thought it was quite appropriate given the timing of where we are in the calendar and the feast days. But yeah, as I was out and about looking, I saw this article. It's about the great Dechurching that's taking place in America, which I do find particularly interesting just in the context of is there a preparation of church-going folks who basically have had enough of, religious captivity and falsehood and a craving for genuine biblical discipleship and teaching and everything else. And I thought this article summed it up real well. So the Great Dechurching looks at why people are leaving churches. So I don't know if you're familiar, but there's a lot of people coming away from the church who aren't attending, particularly post Rona. But this takes more of a statistical look of what's taking place. So yeah, we'll just get into it. Jim Davis and Michael Graham knew something was up in their hometown of Orlando, but they just couldn't put their finger on it. At the time, both were pastors at Orlando Grace Church, an evangelical congregation, and saw a study showing that their community had the same percentage of evangelicals as less traditionally Christian cities like New York and Seattle. Their city also ranked low on a list of Bible-minded cities, with a profile more akin to cities with secular reputations than the Bible Belt communities like Birmingham, Alabama, or Nashville, which didn't make any sense to them. Orlando was home to the headquarters of Cru, a major campus ministry, along with Wycliffe Bible Translators and other major Christian nonprofits, as well as booming and influential megachurches like the First Baptist and Northland Church. And Orlando felt different from New York or Seattle. Then it hit us. It's because our people used to go to church, David said. He and Graham knew of a number of people who had stopped going to church, and the two pastors started wondering how common that was. They began looking for data while there were studies of the so-called nuns, those who do not identify with any faith group. There were a few about church-going habits. Eventually, they decided to do one of their own. With the help of friends, they raised $100,000 and enlisted the help of two political scientists who survey religious trends in the US, Ryan Burge at Eastern Illinois University and Paul Dupe of Denison University, to create what they think is the largest ever study of folks who stopped going to church. That study, combined with other data about Americans' changing religious landscape, led them to a sobering conclusion. More people have left the church in the last 25 years than all the new people became Christians from the First Great Awakening, Second Great Awakening, and Billy Graham Crusades combined. Davis and Graham write in their book, The Great Dechurching, Who's Leaving, Why Are They Going, and What Will It Take to Bring Them Back? The book and the study that prompted it were driven by curiosity and stubbornness. Now, again, for maybe some of the younger in the audience, in the faith and in age, the Billy Graham Crusades was a very well publicized event that took place across America and the UK and probably other parts of the world as well, where Billy Graham went on a big crusade, bringing loads of people to Jesus. But subsequently, a lot of commentators and I guess historians have looked at the the overall retention of Christians from those crusades, and it's been a question as to how many people actually were saved and actually remained in the faith post-crusade. So Billy Graham, again, a lot was said about that individual. However, the fact is he allegedly brought lots of people to the Lord, but maybe perhaps quite a few of them fell away because of the again, just generalizing, but the vacuous nature of the evangelical American industrial church complex. You know, where's the real stuff, essentially. So I think that's a good illustration of perhaps one of the reasons why we're seeing this falling away, as it were. If we've got a question that we need an answer to, we're not going to stop until we get it, said Graham, who is now Program Director for the Keller Center, which helps churches adapt to the changing religious landscape, which is probably a dangerous place to be in if you're trying to appease society to get people into your church. Excuse me. Davis and Graham said that they wanted the study to be informative and vigorous, which is why they decided to work with academic researchers. The study included a survey of 1,043 Americans to determine the scope of dechurching, which was defined as having attended service at least once a month in the past and now attending less than once a year. That initial survey found that 15% of Americans are dechurched. Now, I do understand that a lot of these data pools and these ways of ascertaining information are obviously flawed, and you're using the best that you can in terms of statistics, but it's always an indication in terms of what's taking place, and you know, it's the best we got, essentially. A second phase included a survey which detailed questions for 4,099 dechurched Americans. Their answers were sorted and clustered using machine learning, said Burge, creating groups of people who had statistically similar answers to questions. It's a wonderful way to look at religion without any sort of bias or prejudice, Burge said. It just lets the data speak for itself. The book appears to have struck a nerve with both church leaders and the broader public. Data from the book was featured in a series of New York Times columns about the changing religious landscape and what it might mean for American culture. Burge said the book's surveys build on previous studies of the nuns, as well as studies showing the decline of congregational life in the United States. The 2020 Faith Communities Today study, for example, found the median congregation in the United States stood at 65 people, down from 137 2 decades ago. So the average attendance of an American congregation has in fact decreased substantially. A recent look at the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic found that the median congregation in 2023 is now 60 people. The Pew Research Center projects that nuns could make up as much as half of the population by 2070. Now, for a long time, the church declined and no one really cared, Burge said, and now people are seeing the decline and saying, wow, this is really becoming a problem now. We've reached an inflection point where people are talking about religion in a more thoughtful, nuanced, statistically driven way. The dechurching study eventually yielded profiles of different kinds of dechurched Americans, cultural Christians, who attend church in the past but had little knowledge about the Christian faith. Mainstream evangelicals, a group of mostly younger dropouts, ex-evangelicals, which is something we covered in previous episodes, an older group who had often been harmed by churches and other Christian institutions, dechurched BIPOC Americans who were overwhelmingly black and male, and dechurched mainline Protestants and Catholics who had much in common despite their theological differences. Now, the researchers also sorted dechurched Americans into two major categories: the casually dechurched, those who lost the habit of attending services because they moved or had scheduling conflicts, and then you've also got church casualties who stopped attending because of conflict or because they'd experienced some sort of harm. Now, each of the 5 profiles had a wide range of reasons for leaving their churches and why they might be open to returning. For so-called cultural Christians, they left in part because their friends weren't there, which is 18%, and because attending was not convenient, but also because of gender identity or church scandal. Mainstream evangelicals dropped out because they'd moved, or services were inconvenient, but also because they did not feel much love in the church. Ex-evangelicals in the study left because they did not fit in, because they did not feel much love in the congregation, because of negative experiences with evangelicals, and because they no longer believed. Many BIPOC de-churched Americans left in their early 20s, often because they did not fit in or had bad experiences. Mainline Protestants left because they moved or because they had other priorities or did not fit in, while Catholics who are de-churched said they did so because they had other priorities or had different politics than others in their parish or the clergy. David said that people leaving the churches is often seen as a catastrophe caused by church misconduct or hurt. That plays a role, he said, but the reasons people leave are much more complicated and sometimes more mundane. I guess with regards to church misconduct and hurt, I mean, that's been endemic for a long time in terms of scandals and abuses of power and people within certain church institutions. So we've seen that played out for a while. The de-churched also differ in why they might return. Mainstream evangelicals were looking for friendship, while mainline and Catholic de-churched Americans were interested in spiritual practices and outreach programs. So, I can appreciate the sentiment of, forming relationships and communities within your church. But arguably, you're probably in dangerous territories spiritually if that is a priority. For me personally, I feel these things, as important as they are, should really be a byproduct of your devotion to your church or to the place where you go to worship. And yeah, I can see how certain people may be led to do certain things that aren't necessarily prevalent within a church, whether it is things like outreach or community programs, or they want to be more active, whereas some places might be more, scholarly or more about teaching and doctrine. I don't know. I don't go to all these churches, but I can see how people have different flavors and different callings to whatever their preference is. Many de-churched Americans might return to churches if they found a stable and healthy congregation, Davis and Graham said. But those congregations aren't always easy to find, given the level of polarization affecting churches and other institutions. Again, put two Christians in a room and you're going to find 3 different ways to do something, because unfortunately there's always a level of disagreement no matter where you go. Among other findings, Americans who have higher levels of education or are more successful in life are less likely to drop out. That concerned Davis, who worries that churches only work for people on the so-called success path in life. But again, if you're on that 501c3 sketch of, bums on pews, you're getting paid to do this, and that's the institution within itself. It's like, of course you're going to have like successful people who are donating lots of money, and it just fits in a lot better, I'd imagine. Institutions in America tend to work for people who are on a traditional American path, he said, and unfortunately the church has become one of those American institutions. It's indelibly printed into American Christian culture that, oh yeah, my parents are Christians and my family go to church, and I sing in the choir and I attend the study, and it's like this institutionalized version of what to be a disciple of Jesus actually has been diluted to such an extent at this point, where it's just become an industrial. And I'm not saying this is not, on the whole, this is generalizing, but it's not. When Yeshua came and he flipped the tables because they made it a place of prosperity and trade. It's like that's not what it's all about. So anyway, despite the sobering statistic, Davis and Graham remain hopeful about the future and end their book with a set of exhortations for church leaders. Part of their advice: be patient. The great de-churching didn't happen overnight and won't be reversed quickly. Congregations will need what the authors call relationship wisdom and a quiet, calm and curious demeanour where leaders are quick to listen and slow to speak. The path forward, they write, is not easy, but it is simple. So, all in all, I just find that a very, very interesting article. I think for me personally, if you're looking at this this vacuum, what I would suggest is that there is a crying out for good, sound, biblical doctrine that's taught, and good, faithful leaders who are serving their communities righteously, not for financial gain, not to be, who are in it for the right reasons. And unfortunately, we've got a generation of folk who have been let down either by church hurt, hypocrisy, people not living out the word as it should do. And again, this isn't necessarily pointing the finger because we're all doing our best with what we got, but essentially, I think there's a, to put it crudely, there's a massive gap in the market. And I think is this part of the move of people coming back to the roots of the faith, where at first they've got to come out of Babylon a bit, they've got to step away from these institutions, whether in America, the UK, or across the world in general, where people are really hungry and they're thirsting for the word, they're thirsting for the truth. And again, we can get into the doctrines and the theologies that run and rule these institutions in the West. And are we in part seeing the beginnings of a great revelation within the body of the fulfillment of the fullness of the scriptures? I don't know, but I just thought that was an interesting little insight into what's taking place in America. Are people being ready to come back to the faith, or is it part of a greater falling away? I don't know. You tell me. But yeah. Right. So keeping on with the theme from our last episode, if you've not seen this, I'd be very surprised. But I thought it's definitely worth a look. Yeah, we were talking about Project Bluebeam and all the shenanigans that were taking place, and of course, a big shout out and a thanks goes to the Mexican Congress for our next story, because it's just good stuff. Let's have a look. Start from the beginning. All right, yeah. So basically, yeah, we've made contact. It's official. Thanks to the Mexican government, we now have official confirmation that they're among us. So yeah, this was a real strange one where they've unveiled these little mummified alien creatures, and of course there's been reaction across the board about the legitimacy of the claim, and it's the main ufologists who helped present these, James Musan. He's got a history of revealing like cryptids and monsters, just part of like some terrible hoaxes, putting together these terrible little monsters and then saying that they're supernatural beings and whatnot. So this guy's already got a questionable track record when it comes to unveiling little friendly things, and it's just I think we're fully into silly season. Basically, it's like we've got a couple of options here. The first option is that this is real, that this is legit, and these are in fact mummified midget, small people aliens, or the second option is it's not real. It's a hoax. It's somebody pulling our leg. But I just think it's again interesting timing with certain things in terms of revelations coming out of America with regards to disclosure, and then I don't know whether like Mexico's just spoiling the party where it's like no, we're trying to convince people here. Like we're trying, and you just, I love this. The dude in the white coat is like, if ever you need to make anything look official, just get a guy in a white coat next to it, and it will definitely be legit. But yeah, this is a guy, Jamie Musan. Questionable dude. So I don't fully understand whether like. This is actually discrediting any attempt to legitimize this narrative of contact with aliens and they're among us. Because, I'm thinking paper mache, couple of toilet tubes, and you can make that up yourself. Like no problem at all. But on a slightly different tangent, is this a distraction? I know from having a brief look in terms of the history of shenanigans that take place in Mexican government, and the scandals and the bribes and all of the corruption there is pretty serious. So I don't know whether it's a distraction tactic. I don't know if something's going through in terms of legislation, or there's been some sort of government corruption that they don't want the people to know about. Who knows? But so they're among us. They're here, and just a big shout out to the Mexican government for making us aware. It's much appreciated. Right. Next topic. Somebody who we featured on I think it was the first episode actually. This is a pretty fresh one, hot off the press. It's our friend Russell Brand. He's in the news again, but probably for reasons which he's not happy about. But before we get into that, we'll just play this clip and
We do.
No,
We love facts. I love facts.
I wouldn't have mentioned it. I'm English, and you know that politeness is our fundamental religion.
Yeah.
But they do pertain to this issue, so may I say some of them?
Please,
if they
please do.
inconvenience you, I'll stop saying them. The pandemic created at least 40 new big pharma billionaires. Pharmaceutical corporations like Moderna and Pfizer made $1,000 of profit every second from the COVID-19 vaccine. More than two-thirds of Congress received campaign funding from pharmaceutical companies in the 2020 election. Pfizer chairman Albert Bourla told Time magazine in July 2020 that his company was developing a COVID vaccine for the good of humanity, not for money. And of course, Pfizer made $100 billion in profit in 2022. And may I just mention that finally, and this is also a fact, that you, the American public, funded the development of that. The German public funded the BioNTech vaccine. When it came to the profits, they took the profits. When it came to the funding, you paid for the funding. It's difficult not to...
But I will just add one thing. It is possible that these are greedy capitalists who made a lot of money, and also there are a lot of people who did need the vaccine.
Yes.
There are a lot of people who did need the vaccine. I never wanted to be told I was one of them who had to take it. But there are lots of people who needed that vaccine and would be dead without it. That is true, too.
Bill.
That is true, too.
More facts.
All I'm querying is this.
Yes.
Is if you have an economic system in which pharmaceutical companies benefit hugely from medical emergencies, where a military-industrial complex benefits from war, where energy companies benefit from energy crises, you are going to generate states of perpetual crisis, where the interests of ordinary people separate from the interests of the elite.
Yeah, so we got our boy Russell there. Speaking some truth, and I think he's been on this for a while. There's been a trajectory of the depth in which he talks about certain topics. And again, this isn't to venerate the individual. I think I spoke previously about his questionable understanding of spiritual principles, but in particular the role of God and Yeshua in particular. I'm more than happy to chew the meat and spit out the bones with this one. But as an individual, like, you've seen a man come away from mainstream entertainment and media and arguably, goes onto major platforms and speaks a lot of truth, arguably. And again, the interesting thing about this story for me is timing. It's all about timing. So I just want to set the tone where we have an individual who's speaking truth, who's pushing some buttons. And again, I think there's been a pattern of this emerging within the media. Now, a lot of these individuals, this is where I think personally it does get a little bit murky in terms of who and what constitutes controlled opposition. These individuals are able to speak a degree of truth. They're not deplatformed. They're still accessible on, for the most part, mainstream sources, whether it be YouTube or, social media. They're still accessible and they're still able to speak a degree of truth. So I do question and I do wonder because there are those that do who will speak a degree of truth, and you won't find them on YouTube. You will find them demonetized. You will see them deplatformed and blacklisted and the rest of it. So, I'm not saying that this guy is just some fountain of truth, but at the same time, I just find it interesting when you've been chewed up and used by the mainstream and how they'll just take out their own at a time that's suitable for them. So, yeah, if you've not seen, we'll play this and this will give an explanation.
Hello there, you Awakening Wonders. Now, this isn't the usual type of video we make on this channel where we critique, attack, and undermine the news in all its corruption, because in this story, I am the news. I've received two extremely disturbing letters, or a letter and an email, one from a mainstream media TV company, one from a newspaper, listing a litany of extremely egregious and aggressive attacks, as well as some pretty stupid stuff, like my community festival should be stopped, that I shouldn't be able to attack mainstream media narratives on this channel. But amidst this litany of astonishing, rather baroque attacks are some very serious allegations that I absolutely refute. These allegations pertain to the time when I was working in the mainstream, when I was in the newspapers all the time, when I was in the movies. And as I've written about extensively in my books, I was very, very promiscuous. Now, during that time of promiscuity, the relationships I had were absolutely always consensual. I was always transparent about that then, almost too transparent. And I'm being transparent about it now as well. And to see that transparency metastasized into something criminal that I absolutely deny makes me question, is there another agenda at play? Particularly when we've seen coordinated media attacks before, like with Joe Rogan, when he dared to take a medicine that the mainstream media didn't approve of. And we saw a spate of headlines from media outlets across the world using the same language. I'm aware that you guys have been saying in the comments for a while, watch out, Russell, they're coming for you, you're getting too close to the truth. Russell Brand did not kill himself. I know that a year ago there was a spate of articles, Russell Brand's a conspiracy theorist, Russell Brand's right wing. I'm aware of news media making phone calls, sending letters to people I know for ages and ages. It's been clear to me, or at least it feels to me like there's a serious and concerted agenda to control these kind of spaces and these kind of voices. And I mean my voice along with your voice. I don't mind them using my books and my stand-up to talk about my promiscuous consensual conduct in the past. What I seriously refute are these very, very serious criminal allegations. Also, it's worth mentioning that there are witnesses whose evidence directly contradicts the narratives that these two mainstream media outlets are trying to construct, apparently in what seems to me to be a coordinated attack. Now, I don't want to get into this any further because of the serious nature of the allegations, but I feel like I'm being attacked, and plainly they are working very closely together. We are obviously going to look into this matter because it's very, very serious. In the meantime, I want you to stay close, stay awake, but more important than any of that, if you can, please stay free.
Yeah, so basically, he's in the media, he's in the news stories right now because of allegations of sexual, being sexually inappropriate, accusations of gross sexual misconduct, basically. And I'm definitely not here to like advocate or condone the individual or his actions. At all. I'm sure he can look after himself, and I personally don't have a dog in this fight, as it were. It's like, I just find it interesting that the timing of this, in the sense that these, I guess the knowledge of these allegations or the things that took place historically are backdated from a long time ago. And why is it now that these things are now coming to the surface? Is it because he's like getting too close to the truth? Is he saying things that are making certain people uncomfortable? Is he exploring narratives in which they don't really want the public to be aware of? I don't know. But again, we've seen this pattern of an individual who perhaps comes away from the mainstream, starts talking about some truth, and then starts to get pillared for it. But again, is this, is he just part of the club and this is controlled opposition and it's an appearance to make him look like he's being suppressed and ostracized for speaking the truth, when essentially he could still be leading people up the garden path, as it were? So it's just a real interesting blend how the mainstream media will take these truthers, so-called, and put them in a difficult position, which can actually consolidate and almost bring more people to their corner and to their narrative. I mean, you've only got to look at an Andrew Tate as an example of somebody who is not held in very good regard and esteem within the media, but yet like some of the things that he's promoting are just absolutely abhorrent. But if he's got enough red pill in him and he's talking enough truth, a lot of people will gravitate towards that. And sometimes when these people are ostracized or kicked by the mainstream, it actually attracts more people. I think we had a similar situation with the that far right guy, Tommy Robinson. It's like the more you the more you kick these people, the more people it attracts. So I don't know. I just think again, it seems as though if you start saying certain things about questioning the narrative, they will eventually come for you. And I'm sure, like, in his history of being a broadcaster in the movies that he's done, like, he's promoted the agenda, like, really well. Do you know what I mean? In terms of narcissistic, self-fulfilling, selfish, sexually deviant, promoting all of these, like, really unrighteous principles. And again, I don't know how deep down he got within these sort of these fraternities and whatnot. I don't know. He was definitely deep in the world of celebrity, and at some point he's obviously tried to pull away from that. But what I'm saying is this guy has played his part, and I don't know whether they've had enough and they're just pulling the plug on the guy. But essentially, I think as well, it just in terms of how in this world, like, nothing is without repentance. Essentially, you're knackered, and I think you can talk a good talk, and you can do all the woke stuff and fight the agendas, but without genuine repentance, like, all of those skeletons will be coming up to haunt you, essentially. And thank God that all of our transgressions and sins are buried in the water of baptism, because, again, this isn't about me saying I'm better or more than or less than another man, but I have an advocate in Jesus, in that I can put all of these things at the foot of the cross and walk with a clear conscience that these things in my past, though we may all have to pick up the pieces of certain things, but these guys are, like, having to walk out the repercussions of their conduct and their immoral behavior in a public domain. So who's to say that the Lord's not just saying, well, you've had your cake, now you're going to have to eat it, and it's playing out in real time. So is there a justice being served? Is there a way in which a man has committed all of these things in his past in a state of hedonistic celebrity self-indulgence, and it's coming back to bite him? I don't know. From what I've seen in terms of the allegations, I obviously a lot of it is morally questionable. I don't know if there's necessarily any criminal activity. And if you do go and look at some of the footage of how he's conducted himself in the media and in interviews, yeah, it's questionable at best, and just completely cringing at the same time as well. So I don't know. Again, it's just interesting to see these processes play out in real time. So again, let us know what you think. Is he a martyr? Is he controlled opposition? Has he been used, chewed up and spat out? Or is he going to live to fight another day? Gain more followers, get more traction? Yeah, who knows? Okay, one last outing. Now this individual has kind of gone viral in the last week or two. He's been on numerous podcasts and whatnot, but essentially this is a musician who goes by the name of Oliver Anthony. And he's basically gone viral for a song, Rich Men North of Richmond, which originally I was going to play, but it's actually got a bit of swearing in there, so I don't want to offend anyone. But no, but this guy essentially he's come out with some arguably righteously endearing songs, and he I believe he appeared on Joe Rogan, read some scriptures, spoke about his faith. Again, it's just been refreshing to see an individual go on to major platforms and actually profess Christ and do it in a powerful way. But I just thought it'd be nice to close out with this song. For me, I heard it and it just really captures that sentiment of just having had enough of the madness of this world. And again, I thought in the context of what we do on this show, we I spend my time looking at some pretty crazy things, and as believers we can get tired and weary, and I thought this song really encapsulates that sense of needing Yeshua to sort this mess out, and wanting to be home, wanting to be in heaven with our Father, and looking forward to that day. So yeah, I'm just going to let this play out and enjoy it.
Well, if it weren't for my old dogs and the good Lord, they'd have me strung up in the psych ward. 'Cause every day living in this new world is one too many days to me. Son, we're on the brink of the next world war, and I don't think nobody's praying no more. And I ain't saying I know it for sure. I'm just down on my knees begging the Lord to take me home. I wanna go home. I don't know which road to go. It's been so long. I just know I didn't used to wake up feeling this way, cussing myself every damn day. There's always some kind of bill to pay. People just doing what the rich man say. I wanna go home. Now 4 generations farming the ground. Grandson sells it to a man out of town. And 2 weeks later, the trees go down. Only got concrete growing around. I wanna go home. I wanna go home. I don't know which road to go. It's been so long. I just know I didn't used to wake up feeling this way, cussing myself every damn day. People have really gone and lost their way. They all just do what the TV say. I wanna go home. If it weren't for my old dogs and the good Lord, they'd have me strung up in the psych ward.
Yeah, there we have it. Thank you so much for joining me once again. Really appreciate your time. Again, I appreciate all your interactions in the comments and all of your suggestions. And I hope that this reaches you all well. I hope and I pray that you can stay strong, keep fighting the good fight, and from our house to yours, this has been the Upper Room After Hours, and Take care. God bless. We love you loads.